Well, our tile is finally dry and we are ready to move on to the next phase, and that is grouting. When you're grouting, you generally have two choices, either a sanded grout or an unsanded grout. It's going to depend on the tile that you're using and the size of your grout joint, and also just personal preference. We're going to be using a sanded grout. Generally, the sanded doesn't shrink as much and it's a little more durable. Most people would think, though, with glass tile, you can't use sanded grout. It would seem that it would scratch the top of the tile, but check with the tile manufacturer. We can use it on this tile, we just have to be gentle in our application. Now, the other piece of this puzzle is a sealer. You'll need to seal your tile if you're working with a porous tile or a natural stone. We don't have to worry about this because we have glass, but if you don't seal it before you grout, there is a haze and sediment that can build up and soak into your tile and actually ruin the tile job, so make sure you seal it first. So grout comes in either a powdered form like we're using here or pre-mixed. I don't know any pros that use the pre-mixed stuff. You're not really saving that much time if you're buying it pre-mixed, and the powdered stuff works great. So I'm going to stir this up. I'm looking for the consistency of peanut butter in here. If you have it too wet on the wall, that's almost a little too runny for us. It'll drip right out of your grout joints and down your wall. And then once you've got it stirred up, you're going to let it sit for about 10 minutes. Let it do what's called slaking, and that means that the water and the mix are activating. And then you've only got, with most grouts, about 20-25 minutes working time. So only mix as much grout as you can get on the wall or the floor in that amount of time. If you have any spacers left where you were tiling, make sure you take them all out now.
Before you grout, take a sponge that's barely wet and wipe down the wall. This will prevent any dust from getting in the way of the grout. Use a rubber grout float to scoop some grout from your bucket and smear it across your tiles in a direction that is diagonal to the grout lines. Hold your float at a 45-degree angle and continue to work grout into all of your seams. Do not grout the bottom seam where the counter meets the tile. This will be caulked when the grouting is done. Use your float to wipe any excess grout left on the surface.
Now, we've let our grout set for about 10 minutes, and that means 10 minutes from the place that you started, not 10 minutes after you finish grouting. You want to take just a slightly damp sponge and wipe it over the top of the tile at a 45-degree angle.
Rinse your sponge frequently for best results.
You want to make sure not to add any water to the grout. You don't want this too wet because that breaks down the bond of the grout. And you're really just taking off the haze, making sure that you're not pulling any of that grout back out of the grout joints.
Once the grout has dried completely, usually overnight, clean any leftover grout haze off the face of the tiles with a damp sponge and a grout haze remover. If you're working with glass tile, like we are, you shouldn't need the haze remover, since the dried grout shouldn't stick to the face of the tiles and will probably wipe right off.
Now that you've finished your tiling and your grouting and it looks fabulous, you want to keep it looking fabulous. You're going to need two things. The first is, after about 2 days, when everything is set up, you want to apply a grout sealer. This is going to protect the grout from any mold or mildew or stains, so it's an important step. The other thing you want to do is go around each of your edges where your backsplash meets the countertop or maybe on the side seams and finish it with a grout caulk. This caulk should match perfectly the grout that you put into your grout joints, but what it does is it gives you a nice finished look around all your edges.
One more thing, you might need to pick up some longer screws when you replace your wall plates to compensate for the thickness of the tiles.
And there you have it. We just gave this kitchen a dramatic upgrade for under $300. That ain't bad.